Hey there, my name is Niandra. This week I want to talk about the state of Moira and also touch upon Blizzard's recent actions. There's been a lot of heated discussion as to whether Moira is overpowered or not. The main ones were videos by Samito and Tesla, which I'll link below. I'm gonna be honest with you, while writing notes for this video, I started to realise I don't actually like Moira very much, but I also don't think she's super overpowered. Before Rollock, the Overwatch League was plagued by GOATs, which was 3 tanks, 3 supports. Moira was only briefly included and eventually replaced by Niandra, in a team composition that revolved around sustain. She was dropped because Zen had more utility, which was always the #1 criticism about her character. Before roll queue, at the majority of ranks, most matches were 2-2-2 anyway, and most deviations were stuff like 3 or more people wanting to play DPS. The reason I mention this is because I've heard that Rollock is a buff to Moira, but 2-2-2 is generally the standard or ideal comp anyway, yet Ana was the most sought out. To be fair, Moira was considered good at low to mid ranks, but she got worse as you climbed, with utility increasingly favoured over raw healing output. Moira was never really an issue in the past, and she didn't receive a buff when Rollock was released. I feel this is good evidence for me to believe her current state is largely due to the meta, especially since a lot of counters like Ana and D.Va struggle to get value elsewhere. Like, I remember saying in this video, if Moira ever becomes meta, remember that anti-nade absolutely wrecks her and takes away one of the 2 things Moira can provide her team. I guess I never accounted for Ana struggling. Before roll queue and this meta, there would occasionally be matches where Mercy's healing wasn't enough and I'd swap to Moira. Usually the swap was a great choice, but I knew if I could play Ana to the level I could play Mercy, I'd definitely be on her instead. The only reason I had to pick Moira was I found her easier and I couldn't play Ana. And I don't know, I think this says a lot. Anyway, let's talk Moira and her kit. Personally, I have gotten bored of her, and multiple games in a row this season has kinda drained me a little. That being said, some people find Moira fun, and fun is subjective. I wouldn't mind seeing Moira reworked to have more utility and decision making, since she feels quite one-dimensional, but I'm not going to pioneer a movement or raid any forums just because I don't personally like her. Some people find her resource management engaging, and that's okay. Let's look at Moira's healing, which is insanely high at the expense of her kit lacking utility. I would be open to Moira's healing being nerfed if a ton of other characters were nerfed alongside it. Overwatch is kind of in a messy state right now, and power creep is currently a common word in the community. We've had Rollock, but not many balance patches with it, so there's tons of buffs and nerfs still in the game that were implemented to deal with GOATs, a composition that's no longer possible. I've also seen a couple of posts like this one that say Moira has more utility than we give her credit for, and again, I want to remind you that almost everything here is nullified by anti-nade. Because I am so desperate for any character to get this, what I would love to see is some of Moira's healing taken away and replaced with anti-CC based utility. For example, I think a cleanse orb could be really neat. Stuff like this and utility in general would be helpful because it would make her less oppressed by anti-nade, and I don't think Ana's going to be out of the meta forever. With Moira, I think it's very easy to provide trash damage, damage that doesn't confirm kills and is essentially converted into enemy support ult charge. For example, in Samito's first Moira video, at the beginning of defense, he shoots an orb towards attackers and gets about 30% ult charge. To be fair, that's quite high, but all of that damage would have been quickly healed back up, and you can absolutely get similar results with Fire Strike, Dynamite, and general Junkrat spam, especially with ranks like Platinum, where Samito is smurfing at. In the past, Moira having 4 gold medals was something to laugh at, it's how we got this meme, but now it's being used as an indicator of her being overpowered, which, I don't know, a bit iffy in my opinion. Personally, I wouldn't mind aim being tightened up. As you can see here, the hitbox is very generous. I also tested with Symmetra and Zarya, both are also lenient, but not to the same extent. Before the pitchforks come out, let me play devil's advocate. Moira's right click does 50 damage per second, which is exceedingly low, and Overwatch is a fast-paced, highly mobile game. A lot of hitboxes aren't as tight as they could be. I still think it could be better though, especially since in a 1v1 you're often using damage orb alongside this, and strafing should be valid against Moira. Biotic Grasp also has a range of 20 meters, which I'm really conflicted about. On one hand, it's her main method of getting resources back, and again the damage is crap. However, 20 meters is pretty long. I could see a shorter length adding another layer of decision making when positioning, as long as she was given buffs in other areas to compensate. Plus, it also might discourage DPS Moiras and help the medal problem, like she wouldn't be able to tag an enemy miles away and get the credit. Let's move on to Moira's damage orb, and I looked through the comments of Samito's video in hopes of finding discussion. After trekking through a wave of both sides getting called brain dead, I saw this comment and I'd like to bring attention to it. This post suggests making damage orb like Orissa's pull, in that Moira can press a button to make it explode. Honestly, I think this sounds really fun, and I wanted to mention it because it's actually constructive. I have heard a lot of people say the damage orbs are RNG and unskilled. To be honest with you, I don't really have an argument against that, although you can do quite a bit with the initial throw. But personally, I've never really had an issue with these orbs or found them oppressive. It's only really a problem in the 1v1, and her self-heal's getting nerfed to make that harder on her anyway. Samito posted this clip where he's terrorized by an orb as Rein, and for every one clip like this, I think you could find many more where the orb just went into space or did poke damage. They only do up to 200 damage altogether, and that's often split between heroes, so usually it's not difficult to nullify since you're always running 2 healers. I think Moira orbs disappearing upon her death could be a nice little anti-frustration nerf if the developers did want to look at it. You could maybe even make it like Junkrat's Martyrdom, where it does a bit of damage then fizzles out as a sort of middle ground. Last of all, let's move on to Moira's ultimate, which honestly I think is fine. Generally, I feel it's on the same power level as the other main healer ultimates, but because it goes through shields in a shield heavy meta, it is elevated quite a bit at the moment. One part I do appreciate is that while Coalescence is active, Moira can't use her Fade, which adds an extra little level of decision making. The main criticism I've heard recently is the charge time. I'll admit, if I mess up the timing on Coalescence and it ends up not doing much, I generally don't beat myself up over it because it charges so fast. This isn't exclusive to Moira though. I feel the same way about Baptiste, who charges all equally fast in my opinion. That being said, I'm not against fast charging ultimates that aren't press Q to win teamfight. In fact, I'd actually rather the game go down that direction, to be honest. Although it's not the end of the world if I mess up Coalescence, I should still try with my timing, because if I consistently mess up, my team is essentially playing 5 ults versus 6, which is actually a pretty hefty punishment. In this Samito video, his first Coalescence is done after 3 enemies are already dead. It's used to clean up the fight and, in my opinion, not really needed. You can also see how low the damage is by how long Orisa takes to die. I'm not a big fan of him saying there's nothing they can do because, yeah, you've already won the fight. As for Fade, I don't have much to say on it to be honest, so apologies, but I'm gonna skip it, and that's all I've really got on Moira. To finish this video off, I just want to say that I think Blizzard's recent actions have been really shitty, and I absolutely stand with Blitzchung. I don't plan to give Blizzard any more money. I pre-ordered Overwatch for the Switch a few weeks ago, and apparently the Nintendo eShop doesn't do refunds, but I think I can get around it thanks to European laws, so we'll see about that. Anyway, that's kinda it. I might do videos on some other games in future, like I've always wanted to do a dumb Rainbow Six Siege montage. Thank you so much for watching. Feel free to check out my Patreon where I'm doing Mercy VOD reviews for $5, and have a nice day.